Hello everyone, my name is Tom, and that's it. That's the end of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. The story is over, and I am full of emotions. On one hand, I'm really happy that now it can exist as a quality story. It didn't overstay its welcome, it never went off the rails, at least in my opinion. It made it to the end, and now it can stay that way in our memories forever, which is an accomplishment on its own. But at the same time, this show was really special for me because it did provide a voice for so many people who have been underrepresented in media, but also I've been following She-Ra from the beginning. I was at their first big panel at New York Comic Con back in 2018. Ever since the first images of the show dropped, I've been a vocal supporter for it. Even beyond that, I've been following Noelle Stevenson's Tumblr for years, so to see her go from her webcomics to producing her own show was incredible. So before we start, I want to extend thanks to everyone who worked on the show, as well as all the people who have supported it, and those of you who have been interacting with the She-Ra content we've been making here on the Roundtable for the last couple of years. That includes both the fans who have created a demand for that content and the fellow creators who have reached out with kind words along the way. It has been a privilege to be a part of the culture and discourse around She-Ra, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now let's get into what y'all came here for. This season switched up the status quo a lot, and it worked pretty well in making the season feel bigger than the rest. This was the first time Micah was an actual part of the cast. The removal of the main cast from Etheria created a necessity for the supporting cast to get their own development, which is something I may or may not go into in a future video. And of course, Horde Prime was the primary villain, and this is the first time a villain in She-Ra has been so deranged and evil that there was no humanity to attach to, which only made all the existing villains feel more human. Even though Hordak might be objectively evil, knowing that this is where he came from, this is the person who molded him into who he is, proposes the question that maybe if he is no longer loyal to that figure, and has the self-awareness to realize how screwed up that environment is after being used by Prime, maybe he can work to be an okay person. But Hordak's role in the story is not as large as Catra's. I said very recently, no matter what happens, this was always a love story between Catra and Adora, but of course, many of y'all know I've been the devil's advocate about them actually going all in on that. Maybe that's because part of me really identifies with Catra, and I believe the people that I care about would be better off without me, so by extension, I thought Adora would be better off without Catra. That might be a conversation for therapy though, and not a YouTube video, so we can just leave that there for now. The thing is, certain things needed to happen in order for Catra and Adora to mend their relationship to the point of it making sense that they would be like, okay, let's get married, and I want to say, they ticked those boxes. It really came down to the fact that Catra had to learn how to be vulnerable, and from there, the process went along naturally. The details of that are their own conversation, but basically by allowing herself to be helped, be cared about, and be known, Catra was able to heal from a lot of the pain that she was going through that was causing her to be such a toxic influence on the people around her. And basically, she did what Adora wanted her to do from the beginning. She turned on the Horde to be with Adora and join her new group. But before that happens, Adora becomes She-Ra again. Since she destroyed the sword last season, now she becomes She-Ra in a more literal transformation sequence, where she materializes the sword through pure magical energy and transforms into She-Ra like she's going Super Saiyan. It's also similar to going Super Saiyan in the sense that it seems very based on emotion. Her She-Ra form is something that she struggles with throughout the season as she deals with emotional highs and lows. It's hard for her to do it on command at times because it's not as simple as saying, "For the honor of Grayskull." Now she has to be in the right headspace, and as she's rebuilding her relationship with Catra, and they have some conflicts and resolutions there, it's tough for her to stay in a level headspace. But before we go on with that, let's dive into Horde Prime a bit. Obviously, Horde Prime is the main antagonist of the final season, but I found the threat he poses to be very interesting, because physically, he doesn't pose much of a threat. He's very reliant on all these methods of preservation to stay immortal, which allows him to be very resilient, but it's also a massive physical weakness. Horde Prime's strength is in his lack of moral compass, his technological knowledge from generations of learning, and ability to manipulate and control people. He's basically a cult leader, and uses a lot of 1984 techniques to do that, right down to calling his subjects little brother and little sister, which at first it seemed like he called Hordak little brother because he's a clone of him, but he uses that for all the people he takes control of who aren't clones too, which symbolically places him in the role of Big Brother, which is taken from 1984 to refer to an entity of power which is always watching and influencing a society. In short, Prime's power is to control people in many ways, including manipulation, possession through his mental network that he connects all of his subjects to, including several members of the rebellion, or he can just straight up transfer his consciousness to others. It's implied he's been doing it for generations whenever his physical body starts to break down, and he even teased the possibility of doing it to Catra, which means it's not just applicable to clones, probably to anyone who he has connected to his hive mind network. He also has some sort of history with She-Ra that isn't entirely explained. He says he wiped out the first ones. He says he knows Mara's face, but can't recall from where. But we also know that Mara sacrificed herself, and that's how she died, so it's hard to imagine how they would have crossed paths, if retreating from Milog's planet Krytus was such a point of shame for him, and an isolated one at that. Though maybe evasion is different from forcing retreat? I don't know. So the thing is, Horde Prime doesn't like magic because fire's scary. He doesn't understand it, and basically it's a force that his mental manipulation has no control over. He can control people who can control magic, but in a case like Krytus, it seems like they were just straight up magical beings that didn't have a level of consciousness like that, so he had no power over them. But this also means that if Adora has full control over She-Ra and can get to Prime, it's a wrap for him, because not only is he physically vulnerable, but She-Ra's powers are magic, which he has no real defense against. And that's why he's so obsessed with taking control of She-Ra's power. So obsessed with the secret weapon of Etheria and the heart of Etheria, which powers that secret weapon. Because if he can control a magical power that trumps the power that opposes him, then he would be unstoppable. But there is a failsafe for that power at the heart of Etheria, called the Crystal of Arxia. Harnessing that power can allow the user to destroy the heart of Etheria, and She-Ra is the only one powerful enough to harness that. So that needs to happen to keep Hordak from winning, and Trapta needs to jam the signal to the devices he's using to control their friends, and from there the homie would have no defense and it would be easy to beat him. But of course, this process is much easier said than done. Prime knows that Adora is headed to the heart of Etheria to destroy it, so he starts hacking into the planet, since it all runs on First One's tech and he has that technical knowledge, and this allows him to try to stop Adora right in the middle of a projection of Mara telling her that she deserves to be happy and shouldn't have to sacrifice herself to save the world. Then a monster that Prime is attached to lashes Adora and infects her with a virus from Prime that weakens her power so she can't maintain her She-Ra form. And that's when Catra and Shadow Weaver pull up to save her, leading to a very conflicting moment where Shadow Weaver sacrifices herself for Catra and Adora, showing that even though she was a horrible and often abusive mother figure for both of them, she still loved them, and is willing to put herself in harm's way, even putting her whole life on the line to protect them. So even though she did a lot of bad things, you still have to reflect for this moment on what Catra and Adora meant to her, but more so what she meant to them. Lukewarm defense aside, Catra and Adora find the heart, and Adora, because of her injuries, doesn't have the strength to become She-Ra, so she can't safely harness the power of the failsafe to destroy the heart. But she refuses to put everyone at risk, and tells Catra to get away while she risks her life. But Catra says that no matter what happens, she's staying by her side, a subtle sign of her development, their falling out originally being because she wouldn't follow Adora to the rebellion, and now she refuses not to follow her into what could be the end. But then Adora collapses as Hordak Prime takes control of the heart, and Trapta was also captured in the process of jamming Prime's control signals, and even though Hordak has a moment of clarity to turn on Horde Prime and kill his physical body, Hordak became Prime's new host, took Trapta hostage, and continued to try to use the heart to destroy the planet while Adora is unconscious. And during this, Adora has a dreamlike vision looking into the future. Bo, Glimmer, and Catra are all there, talking about going to a ball thrown by Scorpia, where it seems like the pairs are going as couples, which, by the way, Noelle confirmed after the fact that Bo and Glimmer are now a canon couple. Funny how the tables have turned, where that's the couple that needs to be confirmed in post-show interviews, because after Prime interrupts this vision to bring Adora back to reality, Catra brings her back to consciousness by professing her love. A love that is returned as Adora comes to, and they kiss, which removes the virus Prime infected her with. Which maybe that seems like some BS, but let's remember, Prime's powers are cerebral, they're mind-based. They aren't magic, and even the members of the rebellion who he took control of had some autonomy that was influenced by their emotions. So Adora feeling an intense emotion, like realizing a romantic connection with someone she's known and admired since childhood, which reinvigorates her fighting spirit to give her something to live for rather than something to die for, plus the fact that she is a magical girl, could in theory be enough to override whatever Prime infected her with. So it's not that unrealistic when you really look at it. So then she becomes She-Ra, she destroys the heart, and with nothing stopping her, she now uses her magic to destroy Horde Prime and free the universe from his reign of terror. Now everyone can live happily ever after, Glimmer finally gets to reunite with her father Micah, Catra makes up with Scorpia, and the best friend squad is free to love and travel the universe, sharing their magic in a seemingly open-ended call to adventure. A call to adventure that Noelle Stevenson says she wants to explore, but it would probably be best not to entertain that to avoid spoiling the story that's there. So that's the ending of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I was very happy with it, and now I've given my thoughts. Feel free to share yours in the comments down below. Find me at TommyPQM on Instagram and Twitter, or find us at Roundtable Vids on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Roundtable and hit the bell for notifications to never miss a video. I hope you have an awesome day. My name is Tom, and I'll see you next time. See ya!